Hi there, I'm Rose with Rose Colored Movies, and today I'm doing the first of what I hope to be a series of shows I'm calling Script Doctor, where I diagnose movie failures and suggest possible cures. Like all of you, I get annoyed by all the middling attempts at sequels, prequels, and badly made movies that get foisted on us, the movie-going public. My answer is to try and fix them. For most of these, I plan to use a completely different movie as an example of how the film could have been better. For my inaugural show, I'm going to cover The Matrix Resurrections, the Matrix movie that tells you flat out that it doesn't want to exist. And for the reference movie, I'm comparing it to the awesome Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Total Recall from 1990. Using Total Recall as a reference turned out to be a far more inspired choice than I intended. When I rewatched Total Recall again, I realized that the Matrix movies were probably directly inspired by Total Recall. A lot of the scenes from the beginning of The Matrix are almost scene-for-scene remakes of scenes from Total Recall. So before I get to how the Matrix sequel failed, I'm going to go through how the Matrix movies used Total Recall as source material, and then go through how they could have used it to construct the fourth Matrix movie. Spoilers ahead. Total Recall begins with Arnold Schwarzenegger as a mildly dissatisfied construction worker named Quaid. He has recurring dreams where he is with a beautiful woman on Mars. When he wakes up, he tells his wife they should move to Mars, but his wife says that he doesn't actually want to move to Mars. On his way to work, he sees a commercial on the subway for Recall, where you can go and get the memory of a vacation implanted in your brain. Quaid is interested and goes to Recall and asks for the memory of a trip to Mars. They sell him on an upgrade where he's not just a tourist on Mars, but a secret double agent, one who gets the girl, saves the planet, and kills the bad guys. He goes into the seat for the program to be loaded, and they say they're loading a new program, Blue Skies on Mars. But then something goes wrong with the procedure. The doctors say he's had previous memory work done, and the recall procedure fails. Quaid goes home and is met in front by bad guys who are trying to kill him, but he fights them all and takes them all out. Up in his apartment, his wife attacks him, and he has to knock her out, and runs away. He makes his way to a hotel, and in the hotel room he gets a sudden unexpected phone call. The stranger on the phone tells him to look out the window. Outside, the stranger is calling from a payphone. The stranger tells Quaid he's being tracked and leaves a suitcase for him. Quaid escapes again to an abandoned cement factory and finds that the suitcase contains IDs, money, and a device to remove the tracker in his head. It works by going in his nostril and pulling a ridiculously large tracker out from his nose. There's also a message recorded by his previous self saying that he's had his memory wiped, but that he contains secret important information about Mars, and that he has to go back. The bad guys show up following the tracker he removed, and Quaid has to escape again. He goes to Mars and meets the beautiful woman who is his contact there with the Resistance. Mars has an evil overlord who controls the supply of oxygen to the residents. The Resistance fight him from a brothel on the seedy side of town. Their Resistance lair is hidden in caves behind walls of the bar. A man shows up at Quaid's hotel room and tells him something went wrong with the program at Recall, but that if he takes a red pill, he'll wake up and be fine. However, if he doesn't, then he may lose his mind to the simulation. Quaid shoots the strange man and spits out the red pill. Quaid then meets the Resistance and agrees to help out. He finds out that the information he contains is that the alien technology on Mars is there to convert the ice under the surface to oxygen, giving Mars an atmosphere. The bad guy doesn't want this, as he controls the monopoly on oxygen on Mars. Quaid fights the bad guy and his henchmen, wins the girl, and activates the alien technology that establishes an atmosphere on Mars. The movie ends with Blue Skies on Mars and Quaid saying, "I just had a terrible thought. What if this is a dream?" And the girl says, "Well then, kiss me quick before I wake up." So is this whole movie just the program that they loaded in Recall? Or was he a sleeper agent whose memory had been erased? The brilliance of this movie is that the story works both ways. Talking to people who saw the movie, everyone has a different take on whether it really happened or not. I am in the "it was all a program" camp, but other people are firmly on the side of it actually happening. What's great is that the movie works perfectly well either way. It's a gorgeous, atmospheric sci-fi movie that held up really well over time. And I think the concept of the Matrix originated from Total Recall, possibly. What the Matrix movies do is flip the script. The program is the thing you wake up from. It is the boring everyday life. Neo wakes up from the lie. His true existence is the rich, messy one filled with adventure and romance. The core concept of The Matrix is that the reality around you is an illusion, a forced world of control. Waking up is an act of defiance, a radical denial of your own basic existence. It was that message that resonated with everybody, that feeling that the world around you wasn't real, wasn't everything. But it's all still just implanted virtual reality, a program inserted directly to your brain. Either it's the baseline for your normal existence, as in The Matrix, or it's a program you buy for entertainment, like in Total Recall. And boy does The Matrix reuse a lot of the scenes from Total Recall. Everything from when Neo wakes up to when he takes the red pill is an almost scene-for-scene remake of a scene from Total Recall. So let's do a comparison. The Dream Woman. A mysterious, beautiful woman in a strange locale. Quaid's is a beautiful brunette in a spacesuit on Mars. The Matrix begins with Trinity, clad in black, escaping agents before disappearing electronically. Now, in The Matrix, we take the scene with Trinity as explicitly real, something that happened, because Neo meets Trinity later. But the setup doesn't preclude that it was all just Neo's dream in the first place. The man goes to his boring job. Programmer for Neo and construction worker for Quaid. The phone call from a stranger with instructions. In Total Recall, it comes in a hotel room from a stranger who directs Quaid to look out the window. In The Matrix, it comes from a stranger who tells Neo to go out the window. Removing the bug. In The Matrix, the implanted bug is removed by a big gun through Neo's belly button. In Total Recall, the tracker bug is removed through Quaid's nose with a similar big gun, with an extractor that comes out his nostril. The red pill. In Total Recall, Quaid is told he is still at Recall, and that something went wrong with the program. He is offered a red pill. If he takes the red pill, he wakes up and goes back to his normal life. Quaid refuses. Neo is offered a red pill and a blue pill, and again, the red pill wakes you up. But here, it is the Matrix that is the normal existence you are waking up from. So the whole opening for The Matrix seems to have been inspired directly from Total Recall. But there are also other elements from the Matrix movies that call back to Total Recall for their inspiration as well. The shootout by security. In Total Recall, there's a huge shootout at customs on Mars. In The Matrix, there's a huge shootout in the lobby of a building by security. The rebel base is in a cave. In The Matrix, the city of Zion is in a cave somewhere deep underground. And in Total Recall, the rebel base is in a hidden cave on Mars. Being taken to see the Oracle. In The Matrix, Neo is taken to see the Oracle as soon as he's been woken up and rebuilt. In Total Recall, Quaid meets the mysterious, somewhat mystical rebel leader in the cave of the rebel base. The Big Drill. The big conical drill in The Matrix, used by the machines to drill down to the city of Zion, looks a lot like the Mars drill that Quaid goes against in Total Recall. The good guy gets shot at but doesn't die. In Total Recall, Quaid has a hologram watch that projects an image of him. In the film's climax, we see Quaid get shot at point blank, but it's just a hologram. In The Matrix, Neo gets shot at, but simply stops the bullets. The Savior. Quaid saves all the people on Mars from their domination by Cohagen, the bad guy, who has been controlling their air supply. In The Matrix, Neo saves the humans from the machines. And even the term The Matrix is mentioned briefly in the scene when the program Quaid orders is being input into the machine.
Ernie, patch in Matrix 62B 37,
And the end.
All dreams come to an end.
Everything that has a beginning has an end, Neo.
In my previous episodes about The Matrix, I tied a lot of their plot to the Dark is Rising books by Susan Cooper. There were a few conspicuous parts missing, though, like the opening scenes with the bug, and the caves, and the drill. Adding in Total Recall filled in those gaps quite nicely. And I think the final recipe for The Matrix was roughly 70% Dark is Rising, 10% Total Recall heavily weighted on the first Matrix movie, 10% Dune, and 10% other, their own stuff, whatever the mythos they used was. So now that I've talked about Total Recall and how The Matrix used it for inspiration, let's talk about The Matrix Resurrections. The movie begins with Neo, alive again and reinserted into The Matrix. This time as a game designer who has made a series of 3 successful video games called The Matrix. He's seeing a therapist because his grip on reality is tenuous, and he is taking a prescription for blue pills. His game studio has been forced to make a sequel to the third Matrix game, and there is a montage of scenes of his team workshopping inane concepts for the fourth Matrix. This is shown as Neo's current hellscape. I kind of don't care where the movie goes after this, when Neo breaks out of the Matrix again, because this opening shows the full contempt that the filmmakers had for their audience. I don't know that I've ever been as viscerally angry at a film as I was after watching The Matrix Resurrections. There is one single core rule of performance, which is this: respect your audience. I mean, my God, they're paying to be there. The audience doesn't deserve to be lectured about how the studio forced the creation of a Matrix sequel. A good performance is supposed to be a kind of gift. Life is hard, and a good movie can take you temporarily outside your problems. Maybe give you a moment of peace. Sometimes even just a quick laugh or an enjoyable fantasy is enough. And the thing that most performers live for is the knowledge that they made something good, something enjoyable. This movie just steps all over that, instead giving the world a temper tantrum about how much it sucked to have to make a Matrix sequel. Honestly, I think this movie hates you. Hates an audience who would want to watch a Matrix sequel. Did you decide to watch this movie because you liked The Matrix and were hoping for more? Well, you don't deserve any more. And even wanting more is a symptom of a sick world. This movie would have it be that sequels are the death of movies and maybe culture.
We had style, we had conversation. No, this is not over yet. I will sequel franchise spin-off.
Again, the hell Neo breaks free from is the creation of this movie, or game. Eventually, Neo cracks out of the Matrix and goes back out into the real world again. Then the rest of the movie has him retrieving Trinity, who was also somehow alive again and plugged back into the Matrix. Even when the movie does take a stab at giving you something like a sequel, the writing is almost unintelligible. Nothing makes any sense, and the whole thing just crashes along toward the end. When it's not busy whining, the film is constantly showing clips from the first three movies, like it's a Matrix tribute show, which would have honestly been better than whatever this was. They should have done that instead. It would have cost nothing, and they could have had everyone reminisce and talk about what their life was like after the Matrix, and show clips from the earlier films. The Harry Potter reunion was nice. They could have done something like that. But showing the clips inside the movie was weird and lazy. It also meant that the movie managed to simultaneously be nostalgic and contemptuous of an audience who would watch a sequel, which is kind of an astounding feat of hypocrisy. The film has Neil Patrick Harris as an evil analyst, and Jonathan Groff as the new incarnation of Smith. But how can both of these guys be in a movie together and not be singing? We're talking Dr. Horrible and Kristoff from Frozen. Have you heard Jonathan Groff sing? He's incredible. And somehow they're both playing bad guys? These aren't the bad guys, they're the comic relief. Unless you're setting up Matrix the Musical as a Broadway show, neither of these guys should be in it. To the producers who willingly released this, why? You lost something like $100 million on this flop, and the movie even insulted you in the process. Warner Brothers was insulted in the movie by name as the studio pushing for the sequel.
Why our beloved parent company Warner Brothers has decided to make a sequel to the trilogy.
Making a movie is never a guaranteed win. It's usually a failure. The High Wire Act is why movie makers strive to get better. Failure is always an option. And if a movie is willing to whine to their audience that the movie they're watching was made under protest, then they have completely failed at the one thing they exist to do, and the studio absolutely deserves to fail. I do not care about this movie's pathetic whining. Total Recall took something like 12 years to get out of development hell and get made. The Matrix sequel was forced into production? Oh, woo-hoo. So what? Take the win and go make a good movie. But I don't hate you, sequel-loving audience. How do I think this movie could have been fixed? Unfortunately, I don't think there's anything that could be salvaged from this wreck. To craft a better sequel, you would have to start over and go back to first principles. What were the inspirations for the original movies, and what did the original movies say? The Matrix was actually set up perfectly for a sequel. The idea was baked right into the films. If Neo was the 6th anomaly to appear in The Matrix, the sequel would absolutely, and in every rational case, be about the 7th iteration of the One, the next Neo. This is how the architect counts time in The Matrix, so let's just go with that. This is such an obvious and easy take on a sequel for The Matrix that it begs the question, why didn't they just do that? If the previous Neo was the 6th, and this just tends to keep happening, the 7th one is going to pop up and start causing problems. This has a couple of advantages. The first and biggest is that you can literally remake the opening of The Matrix. That's great for sequels, we all want to see some familiarity. Then you can do a variation on a theme. The 7th one should be a woman. It makes dramatic sense, and it sets up an interesting alternative. Additionally, what if Neo 7 doesn't always just happily play along? Doesn't do what she's told in every instance? I've spent a lot of time with the Matrix movies over the past few months. Watching them, rewatching them, writing about them, making videos about them. And the thing that really sticks out when you sit down with the movies is that at every point it seems like Neo is doing what the programs wanted him to do. The Oracle tells Neo he has to get the Keymaker to go to the Source. He goes and gets the Keymaker. The Architect even tells Neo that the Oracle's job was to herd Neo towards the Source. The Architect tells Neo he has 24 hours to go to the Source or everyone dies. But the Architect also tells Neo that Trinity is going to die if he doesn't go save her. Neo goes and saves Trinity, but it doesn't matter because in the 3rd movie, the Oracle tells him again that he has to go to the Source or everyone dies, and this time he just does it. No matter what, the ending for Neo is to go to the Source. It's like a bad computer game that was built to look like there was multiple choices, but every choice still just leads to a single ending. Neo goes to the Source and dies. These movies are practically begging for a follow-up where a current iteration of Neo just flat out refuses. Because the Machine Directive certainly seems like a good way to get the One to go and obliterate themselves in a last blaze of glory. But here's the big question. Is any of this real? Once you insert the idea that the mind can be subject to a simulation, there's no reason to believe that Neo ever actually woke up. Especially when Neo started controlling machines in the quote-unquote real world. The story begs for even just a tiny bit of incredulity to be inserted here. To not doubt is to be awfully taken in by all this. Neo constantly sees that there's something a bit off about his own existence in the real world. He even ends up stuck in a loading program for software and still doesn't think anything strange is going on. Unlike in Total Recall, the Matrix movies never explicitly played around with the idea that Neo didn't actually wake up. It was theorized by fans, but inside the films, everything that happened was taken as absolute fact. Neo wakes up from the Matrix, well then he jolly well woke up. It's the one part of Total Recall that the Matrix shied away from, the idea that the whole thing might not be real. In Total Recall, it was the entire premise. Quaid's adventure started in the recall office, but when he's in the chair, the program they load is called Blue Skies on Mars, which conveniently enough was the ending of his adventure. We, the audience, never know if it's all just an illusion or not. I would have loved for a Matrix sequel to toy with the idea that maybe none of it is real, that the whole Neo arc is a way to conveniently get rid of troublemakers. You separate them out, give them a hero plot, and then they walk themselves to their doom of their own accord, because that sure seems like what is happening. And machines would absolutely jump at the option of just doing the same thing over and over again, once it's worked in the past. It's the safest option, the one that worked before. A new One shows up, you give him the hero arc, and they take themselves out. So what happens if Neo 7 doesn't play along, doesn't just do what she's told? Then the machines have to adapt, which is something they're probably terrible at. Anything that exists as a program is going to default to rote repetition. The Oracle would throw absolutely everything at getting Neo 7 back into the track of the story. Everyone is going to die if she doesn't go to the Source and all that. There could be real value in seeing how the same plot would work on a different protagonist, but maybe this Neo could be just a little less credulous, a tad less willing to jump to her own doom. And maybe Trinity isn't real. Maybe she's just a program too, the love interest. to act as a lure to the One. Again, maybe a female Neo wouldn't be quite so won over by the love interest, or so willing to throw themselves at the source for the good of humanity and all that. The Merovingian tried to tell Neo he was being manipulated. His line about choices being determined by emotions is almost identical to the architect's line later, but his point with the cake got lost in its horn dog delivery. I've listened to the Merovingian speech a couple of times, and after a while I started thinking, is the Merovingian trying to warn Neo? His whole display with the cake is meant to show how choice can be an illusion, how that with the right setup, there is no choice. The cake causes arousal, orgasm, and his point is that the girl is essentially helpless in the face of this kind of chemical manipulation, an animal. Then, the architect lays out the same kind of trap. He tells Neo Trinity is about to die, and he can see the choice Neo is about to make laid out by the chemical precursors in his brain. The emotion drives the choice, not logic. The Merovingian was trying to explain that Neo is being manipulated, but Neo was too dense to get it. The Merovingian actually refused to help Neo get to the source, but ultimately Persephone took over and completed the instruction anyhow. The Merovingian was the only person trying to give Neo a warning, which begs the question, why? Who is the Merovingian? They say he's an old program, but what if that's not the whole truth? It would be so tempting to have him be Neo 2 or Neo 3, some previous iteration of the One, who also didn't play along, but was granted something like immortality if he agreed to help out. You could also still have the previous Neo bouncing around like a ghost in the machine, just to mess with the machine plans. Neo's avatar showing up and helping out Neo 7 would be right in line with his personality, especially if the machines have no idea how he got there, what he is, or how to get rid of him. He could even encourage Neo 7, like the Merovingian, to stop and look at everything more closely, to slow down. They can do that, they can always slow down, take a closer look. This all gets to the big question, what's really outside the Matrix? If Neo never woke up, then what is the true reality? Because the story of humans being used as power cells is silly. It ignores that humans, like everything else in the universe, consume energy, and the waste heat is always going to be less than whatever they need to live. Keeping humans alive would be a massively expensive and difficult proposition. The energy cost would be phenomenal. So who is really keeping them alive, and why? I propose the following. Suppose Neo 7 just stopped in the middle of the Neo hero arc and refused to go forward. She asks the Merovingian who he is, and if he dithers, she jumps into his code and takes a look. What does she find there? Maybe a map or a diagram of the Matrix that includes Zion. Anything that leads her to think that maybe everything around her is still fake and she is still asleep, and gets her to ask the big question, what's really going on? Because if you want to make a successful Matrix sequel, it has to ask this question. If you want to get to the heart of what the Matrix was, it was the question, what is truly real? Without that, it's just trench coats and sunglasses and green tinting. So what's on the other side of the mirror? Alice didn't just go down the rabbit hole, she also went through the looking glass. My preference is for massive ecological collapse. Earth became unlivable, and the remaining humans either asked the robots to save them, or the robots took pity on them and decided to save them on their own, because humans were too stupid to save themselves. I like the idea that whatever the machines said was partly true. Neo 7 wakes up for real on a space station orbiting Earth, at some unimaginable time in the future, where robots have been trying to foster life back on the surface of the planet. Robots wouldn't care about the habitability of Earth. They can just leave. But humans like it, and maybe some of the robots have a soft spot for, or a half-hearted desire, to re-establish their creators. In the meantime, a small population of humans have been kept alive over the eons, hooked up to a computer-generated world, in perfect health, while the Earth is cleaned up and species are repopulated. The cost of the care and maintenance of the humans could be a massive and continual debate, with a lot of the robots siding with the ones saying it isn't worth it, The humans snuffed themselves out once, just let them die already. If you want to do this like old school sci-fi, Neo 7 could be dragged into the debate to make the human defense. I've said in my previous episodes that The Matrix was based largely on the Dark is Rising books. Well, the ultimate rising of the Dark at the end actually came as a court case. The verdict of this challenge determined the state of the light at the final moment. So a court case to determine the fate of mankind would actually be totally in line with the source material. Sure, it's pretty staple sci-fi, but it could still be good fun. Or you can do something else. The important thing is poking at the reality of what the Matrix is to find out what is really going on. The Matrix is a creche, a cozy little crib of digital swaddling. Showing that Zion is part of the Matrix, just another program, gives you license to really crack open the world. And all of it, every revelation has been teased and suggested in the original movies. I think the reality in the Matrix movies was actually designed to be questioned. Since the Wachowskis used Total Recall as their reference, I honestly don't think we're supposed to be fully committed to the idea that Neo woke up. Warner Brothers really wants to use this IP and expand the world of the Matrix, and I think that there's more that can be done in this universe, if you're just willing to poke at some of these corners and see where they go. The one thing you can't do is complain about doing it. It's a big universe, and in the hands of a capable writer, there's so much you could do with this idea. The Matrix could have a lot of new stories, but that's just my take. How would you fix the Matrix sequel? What did you want to see again? Thanks for listening. This is Rose with Rose-Colored Movies. It's you! This is all your fault. You ruined everything. Before you came along, everything was better. Movies, music, the internet, they were all better. We had 14.4K modems and cassette tapes that melted if you left them on your dashboard. We had VCRs with VHS tapes that got stuck and unwound inside them. We had Napster. We had MySpace. We had civilization. Not this beep boop beep boop. You ruined it all with your eBay and your Google, your Yahoo and your streaming services. Canard à l'orange, pâté en croûte, la fromage. This is not over yet. I will derivative, offshoot, crossover you. I will sign you to a multi-part series and then cancel you in the 4th season. Framboise, pêche, abricot.